Good afternoon and welcome to the MiHUB Monday for March the 27th. Thank you for joining us. My name is Scott Phillips, and I'm the director of the Minority Business Development Agency's Advanced Manufacturing Center in Baltimore. And periodically, we host these MiHUB Mondays to bring a topic of interest to our clients and our shareholders, stakeholders, in this work, in this manufacturing ecosystem. And today, we're really fortunate to have a wonderful group of panelists to discuss supply chain disruption and how do we manage it. And so I want you to sit back and listen to our panelists today. We're also going to highlight one of our firms, Trinity Sterile, and we will hear from the CEO, Abrar, Solatch. But before we get started, I want to give you some background on MiHUB Monday. MiHUB Monday is co-produced by the MBDA Advanced Manufacturing Center here in Baltimore and the MiHUB Cooperative, the Manufacturing Innovation Hub. The Manufacturing Innovation Hub is a democratically controlled and owned organization that is led by many of the members of our AMC. The CEO, Cynthia Rumpf, has brought together a group of her peers to support each other, to bring together resources that help minority manufacturers grow. And so they work really alongside of the MBDA Advanced Manufacturing Center, along with our business consultant, Mark Lawrence, who provides support services to the MiHUB Cooperative. I would be remiss if I didn't suggest that you all may want to put on your calendar May the 25th. That's the hold the date for the Minority Made Symposium. Last year, we had a wonderful time, great panel representation from the Minority Business Development Agency in Washington, the mayor's office, and a number of our clients. And so we asked you to hold that date. So, supply chain disruption. Many of us know that during COVID, if you were in manufacturing, if you were in any business at all, we had challenges getting raw materials or goods for sale. Those challenges continue to persist in many situations. One of our clients who's had to rely quite a bit on overseas materials for his business is Abrar Solatch with Trinity Sterile. Trinity Sterile is a medical device company located in Salisbury, Maryland. So I'd like to bring Abrar on and just highlight his business and allow him to talk a little bit about what is taking place in the marketplace and a little bit about his experience with this supply chain disruption. So Abrar, could you join us?
Hi, how are you doing?
Hey, Abrar, how are you?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I understand you're joining us from Washington today?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, and thank you for joining us. Why don't you share a little bit about what's taking place at Trinity Sterile?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for giving the opportunity. Always enjoy, talking about, what's happening in the industry. So my name is Abrar Solatch. I'm a president of CEO of Trinity Sterile. Trinity Sterile is based in Salisbury, Maryland. Trinity is, Trinity Sterile is businesses like medical kits and medical products, reusable, disposable. And we have been selling our products to 4,000 hospitals, more than 10,000 surgery centers, physician offices, throughout the United States. With the supply chain, and all the challenges, we had since 2020 and 2021. One of the things was the main thing was how we can manage the products, and because we are heavily dependent upon the products we use from overseas and also domestically. So the branded products come from the United States, and all the non-branded product comes from overseas. And so we have the assembling and sterilization. So the assembly, we have form fill machines. With form fill machines, there are different products which go through the kits. So even one component is missed, our machine will stop. So in order to manage the supply chain and everything, we have to make sure that our products comes on time, and all the orders are filled on time. So one of the things when COVID-19 hits in January of 2020, we look at and assess the whole thing, what's happening, with the world and with China and with the United States. We decided to invest more into our products in the components, so we can get the components in place. So we decided to bring 5 to 6 months worth of product into a house, even though it was a huge investment. But in order to serve the customers, that was one of the things that we thought is the best way to deal with it. And also just to make sure we always think about how we are going to keep our supply chain intact to have a smooth flow of products, and also to keep our customers moving on. And also this one of the thing was also that hospitals are heavily dependent upon us to deal with the products because of COVID-19. There was a lot of disruption, and so that was one of the things, how we can manage the whole thing. Also, because of our relationship with overseas, my background is in manufacturing and in sourcing. So, have a 35 years experience in manufacturing and sourcing. So we built a good relationship, with our suppliers. They are our backbone. And when this COVID-19 happened, we did ask for the help and from our suppliers, and they came through. And also, one of the key things was to make it smoother was the logistics. Having a background in logistics, and also, we dived the world. We were able to bring the products in, and also with the PP products, where hospitals were looking for masks, gowns, gloves, syringes. We were able to bring all those in on time, as a matter of fact, ahead of time. And all the products came in. We did not touch any mask or anything. We shipped directly to our customers, and they remember us for what we did for them. And with the supply chain today, also there are challenges. But again, one of the things was how we can find. We always have a backup also, for the components. So we always rely on 3 or 4 different suppliers for the same products. They are compatible, and if one product did not work, was on back order, we offer our customers the alternatives. So that was one of the also thing which keep us in a good shape with our customers. We give them alternatives, and I keep the orders moving on. And then also the inflation came in. Then we have to also look at how we can manage the cost. We bought more equipment, which is more efficient. So did not went back and increase the price on our customers, but we internally, we found a ways how we can also, keep the cost down, with the energy cost, with the production cost, with the logistics cost. We went back and also did. I'm sorry. With the logistics, of in internal logistics, we made sure that we have equipment. We went back, look at the labor cost with the overheads, and manage those costs in a way that we trimmed down the waste. We made ourselves efficient. Even with the freight increase, there was a time, where one container was costing $28,000, which normally was like a $4,000 or $5,000. So how we manage that cost? How we, and that went for 1 year. There was a increase in cost by $300,000-$400,000. So, how we consolidate the products, how we consolidate the whole things, or, also we start, the sourcing domestically, to make sure that, the cost will not go up. So there was different avenues we look at, but the whole thing was how we can keep the supply chain going on, the products going on, and also by not increasing the cost to our customers. Today, our business had grown because, we were there for our customers. They look at us, as the most trusted supplier for them. And we have increased our business from 2020 till now by 50%. Just because, our services, we were there for our customers, and we managed the cost, we managed the logistics, and we delivered our customer on time with a minimum back orders, during COVID-19, and we are there for our customers. And I
Well, you touched on so many things. This was a lesson in supply chain management, quite frankly. You talked about lead times and extending your lead times and increasing your inventory. People get a little afraid to do that because you can get caught with considerable amount of inventory, but it seems like you managed to do that one really, really well. You talked about the importance of your supplier relationship and having a relationship with your customer. You talked about pivoting, if you will, and increasing your sales in masks and gowns as opposed to some of your medical kits. I picked up on that. You talked about having a backup, an alternative to your primary supplier, and dealing with inflation because things went up really, really high and inflation is still real. In that one, I am going to ask you one question, right? Because you can adjust your cost for so much. How have you had the need to raise some of your prices, and how has that gone over with your clients?
To tell truth, no, we did not raise our price.
Okay.
As we trimmed down the waste inside the company. We, as matter of fact, in between our company, just cutting the waste, we saved around about 5%. And we did with the like electric bills, with the machine efficiency, where we increased the cycles, where we were running at 7 cycles, our machines. We were able to run the machine at 13 cycles, double the output.
Okay.
But yes, it took to train our people, and to make sure they are not, the quality is not sacrificed. So so there was different steps we took to do that. And even with the inflation, we also went back to our suppliers. They are our partners. So we work with them, say, hey, you are going to increase the price. It's going to affect us and our customers. So let's work together and see how we can find a solution where we can help each other to manage the cost instead of raising cost. So I would say 80% of our suppliers did work with us to manage the cost instead of increasing the cost.
Wow. Well, this is a great story. I'm sure we're going to hear some perspectives from your colleagues. And so I'm going to ask that David, well, let me introduce the panel. So I'll let you drop off for a little while I introduce the rest of the members of the panel. So today we're really fortunate, as I mentioned, because our first guest is going to be David Burton. And David Burton is the founder and president of DMSCA, the Diversity Manufacturing Supplier Development Council. Wait a minute, let me get it right. Oh man, David, you're gonna have to tell me. I just got I had it all in my head, and
I'll get it straight. Don't worry.
Yeah, bottom line is you work with diverse suppliers, and you help to build those suppliers so they are better suppliers to Fortune 500 companies. You've been doing this for a while, David. You know, one of my mentors. I don't know if I'd be in this business had I not had a conversation with you first. So welcome, David Burton. And David, if you could share a little bit about DMSCA.
Thank you. Well, there are actually two organizations. There's the Diverse Manufacturing Supply Chain Alliance, which is a membership organization.
Alliance, that's what I think.
Alliance, yeah. And the Alliance members are both the large corporations, multinational enterprises, and the small and mid-sized manufacturers. So our membership base constitutes both large and small. And then there's a new player on the block, the DMSCA Supplier Development Foundation, which helps suppliers implement some of the strategies that come out of our program. I enjoyed the last presenter because obviously he's a manufacturing guy that understands supply chain, and that's one of the things we try to do is to get manufacturers to understand that it's not manufacturing, it's supply chain, and they need to look at their world as plan, source, make, deliver, return, because they need to master all of those processes to understand both their upline customers' needs and their own suppliers' needs. I think sometimes small and mid-sized manufacturing suppliers forget that they too have a supply chain that has to be managed the same way they are managed by the upline customers. So our primary interest is in getting small and mid-sized manufacturers ready for engagement in today's supply chain. However, that is the conversation. What is today's supply chain? We've all heard of the fourth industrial revolution or digitalized supply chains, where companies are moving from a linear supply chain to a data-driven digital supply network. And that evolution has been going on for several years now. But what's happening in the real world is that ESG has become the real driver of where supply chains are going. And where digitalization was not a financial threat immediately to small and mid-sized suppliers, our message to small and mid-sized suppliers is that it will be when it comes to ESG, because there will be financial penalties, because financial institutions are beginning to look at your carbon footprint the same way they look at a credit. And if you cannot present one that demonstrates that you are focused on a greenhouse gas emission reduction plan, you may be out of luck, no matter how good you are on the manufacturing side. So look for the financial institutions to play a major part in how supply chains are being managed going forward. The good news here is that the technologies that we talked about in terms of suppliers putting together their digital transformation strategies, the same technologies that was applicable to that are the same technologies that can help small and mid-sized suppliers get ready for reporting what is now called the Scope 3 emissions. Scope 3 emission is where the supply chain stuff is in ESG circular supply chains. And we feel that that's a very, very important aspect of what we can do to help suppliers. And the other aspect of this is, and there's never enough time to talk about these things, but on the one hand, capability is great, but capacity is better, because you can't really service your market without having capacity. What COVID-19 did, it didn't create new disruptions as much as it exposed disruptions and the vulnerabilities that were always there. There were companies, for example, that didn't know if their stuff was on those ships out in Long Beach, California. They didn't know who had it last. They didn't know what condition it was in, and it was not connected. So look to a supply chain going forward that connects everything to everywhere all the time. And if you're a small, mid-sized manufacturer and you're not ready for that environment, get ready, because it's coming. It's not a conversation, it's a fact. So some companies will get there faster than others, but our whole focus is getting suppliers ready for engagement, because they will be blindsided. There's a lot of money out there to help suppliers, but unless they transform, prepare for digitalization, prepare for ESG-driven supply chains, they can become marginalized. And that was the whole crux of the messages that we were trying to foster at our recent conference in San Diego. So those are the things I want to emphasize in terms of what we do to help suppliers get ready for that environment. And we are hands-on, as well as, we do a lot of our training virtually, but there's no cookie cutter approach to developing suppliers. Each has to be done uniquely. They're different than others because every supplier is different. But I'll end with how I started. It's not manufacturing, it's supply chain. And manufacturers have got to understand that they are in a supply chain. They can either be eaten up by it or leverage it to increase their opportunities.
So I think this is a good segue to our next guest, David. So this idea of eaten up by it or try to figure it out. That's really probably a good segue, given some of the clients that Mr. Waddell Daniels deals with. When you say eaten up by it, I'm sure he'll communicate on some of these consumer products that he's working with. But our next guest is Waddell Daniels, who is a partner leader at the Gartner Group. But Waddell has had experience in consumer products business, in pharmaceuticals, and always as a leader in the supply chain industry. And so Waddell, if you could do a little bit more of an introduction of yourself, and from your vantage point, you have a unique vantage point at Gartner because you get to deal with a number of different Fortune 500 companies and how they are managing their supply chain. So welcome to MiHUB Mondays, Waddell.
All right, Scott, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. My friend David Burton, thanks for teeing up this topic. As both of you all know, I am extremely passionate about the area and the topic of supply chain. Again, my name is Waddell Daniels. I'm a leadership partner for Gartner. Gartner is the world's largest advisory research firm. We started out in information technology. We expanded into the supply chain space about 10 years ago. I had the good fortune, after a 26-year stint in industry, to join Gartner about 5 years ago as a leadership partner. And I've had an opportunity to work with primarily Fortune 500, and we stretch it to Fortune 1000 companies that are about $2 billion and above. So these are the largest of the largest corporations in North America and globally. And I have the good fortune to work with senior level leaders across a number of organizations and companies that we know extremely well. I work with everyone from the chief supply chain officer for an organization to SVPs in supply chain to VPs of functional areas, whether it be plan, make, source, deliver, procurement, quality, to senior directors who have functional responsibilities as well. As Scott mentioned, my primary focus is within the consumer packaged good industry, but I also have the good fortune to work with organizations in the industrial industry, industrial manufacturing, life sciences organizations, major pharmaceutical organizations, as well as technology. Prior to joining Gartner, I was the VP of supply chain planning for McCormick & Company. I sat on McCormick's executive leadership team for North America. I also spent some time with Group Danone. I led supply chain for their advanced medical nutrition division. I was director of supply chain planning for AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals. I spent about 9 years in various supply chain roles with Black & Decker, as well as Sweetheart Cup. So all in all, again, over 30 plus years of experience. Most of my experience has been kind of in the supply chain and the logistics space. I have a degree in economics from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I have a master's degree in transportation with a focus in logistics. And my primary focus over time has really been to help organizations develop holistic either business or supply chain strategies that will really focus on improving supply chain maturity, as well as driving improved outcomes from an end-to-end supply chain perspective. So David really talked about the SCORE model. which really focuses on strategy. So where I start with a lot of organizations is to make sure they have a clearly defined business strategy and that their supply chain strategy or their procurement strategy or their planning strategy or their logistics strategy ladders up to the corporate strategy. And then from there, we need to have clear outcomes that we're trying to accomplish, whether it be, servicing our customers at the highest level, whether it be managing our cash flow through inventory, right product, right place, right time, through ensuring quality of our products, through having strategic partners, whether it be transportation carriers or third-party warehouse partners, making sure that all of those connectivities are coming together from a supply chain perspective. In terms of some of the key challenges and the key disruptors, the last couple of years, we've had major key disruptors, whether it be major weather events globally. The war in Ukraine has had a significant impact because Ukraine is a major source for a number of key materials and ingredients that are used globally in a lot of different products. So for example, organic sunflower seed oil is used as a flow agent as well as a key material for a lot of food products that we consume. Obviously, labor availability has changed significantly with COVID, labor attrition. The future of work is something that's on the mind of chief supply chain officers as well as CEOs on a daily basis. Inflation, obviously, the cost of everything has gone up. And that's one of the top priorities that, again, CEOs, CFOs, and chief supply chain officers are really thinking about. So there are a lot of initiatives in place today to really focus on cost optimization. How do we become more efficient? And then how do we leverage technology? How do we leverage automation in a different way? Because we're having challenges with ensuring that we do have adequate labor to run our equipment and our manufacturing facilities, to really work in administrative capacities, whether it be as analysts or planners or managers, or running our distribution and logistics operations, whether it be pick, packing, and shipping operations and warehousing, or having enough drivers to deliver our products to our customers. Also, most of the companies I'm working with, they're focused on driving profitable growth. So as small manufacturers, that needs to be probably your top priority. How do we continue to drive growth? How do we continue to drive growth from a profitable perspective, given all of the headwind that we're dealing with inflation, with kind of labor costs going up, with transportation and fuel costs going up as well. So I'll pause there. I can talk about this topic all day long, but that's just a brief intro of kind of the work I do on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. Once again, like David, you and Abrar, you've touched on so many things that I know are impacting our clients. Transportation is a big one, and the increase in transportation costs. Often the flexibility in pricing is not the same maybe as it might be at some of your other places like McCormick, right? But even at McCormick, I know that the margins are thin on some of those products. And so whether it's a consumer product, it's an industrial product, everything that impacts that supply chain has the potential to impact the profitability of a company. So thank you for kind of addressing that. And really someone who gets an opportunity, this is a great segue again to our next panelist, Sharon Pinder, who is the CEO of the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council. Sharon has had a number of titles, to include the head of the minority business programs for Baltimore City, the special secretary for the state of Maryland for minority business. But as the CEO for the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council, Sharon sees this, discusses it with clients on a daily basis. And I know you have a perspective that I think is important, particularly for some of our smaller manufacturers and our smaller MBEs to hear, even if what they're doing is supplying a manufacturer. So Sharon, welcome to MiHUB Mondays, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this. Uh-oh, Sharon, you're on mute. Thank you.
It's always very difficult to follow the masters in this space, right? And so what we've just heard, from Abrar, from David, to Mr. Daniels has actually been some profound information that I think, I've been taking notes that folks should take notes on. I tell you, I'm dating myself, and when I'm listening to all of this, it reminds me back in my prior to my 20 years I've spent now in the supply diversity space. I spent about 25 years in information technology, software engineering, and application development. And the buzzword then was disaster recovery, but as technology did play a big difference before, what we see now, technology or leveraging technology continues to play a difference in terms of when we look at things like how do we manage a disruption to the supply chain. And, regardless of how prepared that we get, no one saw COVID coming, but I like what I heard David talk about in terms of COVID was an exposure. And then what I've heard today in terms of the workforce, because if you begin to think about the recovery of preparation, it is about workforce or looking for those efficiencies, I think, or looking, to drive profitable growth. All of those things are become really, really important. What I've seen, the Capital Region Minority Supply Development Council is one of 23 affiliates of the National Minority Supply Development Council and has been in existence for 50 years. My particular council or affiliate, Capital Region, covers geographically the state of Maryland, the District of Columbia, and Northern Virginia. We also have a MBDA center. So we operate the MBDA Business Center for the Commonwealth of Virginia. But we've also had in our purview over the last 5 years, the Federal Procurement Center, the DC Center as well. And so when I look at across the country of what my colleagues are doing and what has been disruption to the supply chain there, we also look at the opportunities, particularly in the automotive industry, where there's smaller tier 2 type of suppliers that during this period of time was able to become more profitable because they're small, because they're agile and flexible. Those larger manufacturers depended upon the smaller ones to kind of help deliver some of the things that they needed during that particular point in time. And so the reliance on smaller suppliers in that industry. But then, a lot of things are kind of industry based. When we look at those kinds of things, we saw a little bit of that happening as well. When we look at, I look at somewhat, I don't want to say a post-pandemic recovery, and all the things that we've heard this morning or this afternoon rather has been very important in terms of where the focus should be. But I've seen also a difference in what I would call inclusion strategies of some of our corporations. Our membership consists of 1,700 multinational corporations across the country and abroad, and about 16,000 certified minority businesses. And so just, let's say in the recent year or so, I've seen companies like AstraZeneca, for example, doing what I'm calling grow your own. And I think, and I put this in the category of when you look at preventing or being prepared for disruption in the future, they're looking to take a more hands-on approach, which I love, in terms of the relationships they have with their suppliers. And so we're creating programs that specifically will help, because business is about relationships. And so the preventive piece is to make sure you have those relationships in place before disaster or before contingency are put in place. So they're looking to have a more hands-on, longevity of relationship approach on some of the programs we're putting in there. I'm looking at, and I don't want to announce which of the big 8 firms were doing this, but specifically looking at African-American firms, let's say, and how they were asking me, for class 3 and 4s. And when you class 3 and 4 is, in terms of revenue for us, is basically 10 million and above. Class 3 is 10 to 50 million. Class 4 for us is over $50 million in annual revenues, to actually specifically build some relationships put in place with them And so that they then can service their customer, and something they've never have done before. And then I looked at what's happening in utility space. Exelon in our region is a big utility, and we've put some things in place. We call it the foundation program, whereas we scout out minority businesses that are doing business with Exelon or could be positioned to doing business with Exelon, and taking them through a series of programs and to help build capacity and develop those relationships in-house so that they can then increase their minority business exposure and inclusion and relationships. I look at that as well. One of the things that I'm also reminded of during this time is what happened in some of the industries and how our minority businesses did or did not fare. For example, I'll take the example of the beauty industry, which is what, a multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar business. And a major challenge for them during the disruption was they couldn't get bottles, caps, and pumps. They were out of stock 3 to 4 months, and could not and was not able to recap on those lost turns. And retailers were kind of hard on them, and if you weren't able to provide, they only went with, the support of the ones that did survive. And I heard earlier, which was kind of substantiated for me, that certain ingredients went up with triple the cost, and they couldn't implement that time any price increases because they were already locked into a relationship that said you would not increase your prices for a year or so, and they weren't giving any. Some transportation went up. We heard that earlier. And so, but for that particular industry, people were buying more. When there's a recession, they say it's a recession proof business, but during the downturn or the exposed COVID piece, it became actually one of a blessing in terms of people wanted to feel more beautiful during that time. And so purchasing habits changed during that time. But and then I remember one of the larger of the small manufacturers, she increased her inventory. And then after some of this downturn happened, prices were higher. They've now been able to increase some of their prices, but manufacturing still go from 30 days to 120 days because of the impact to the components manufacturing process. There's a lot of case studies that can be taken place here, but those are kind of some of the things that I kind of saw firsthand during this period of time.
So Sharon, you kind of touched on a number of things as well. I think this idea of changing buying patterns as things change, the cosmetic industry, we saw that with several of our clients that are in what I would call personal care and developing personal care. Same with food production, and this idea of preparing yourself and being able to weather what I will call the storm.
Right.
That seemed to be one of the common challenges that many of the clients that we worked with had to experience. It was weathering. And of course, many of them had to survive on the various programs that the government provided to kind of get over the hump. But there was a reality check. And thank you for kind of mentioning that, the reality check. There are a number of programs that have come out of corporate America, not so much as an industry, but individual companies stepping up, like the BGEs, right? Like the Siemens of the world, saying we want to do something specifically for this our minority contractors. The idea of growing your own is becoming even more critical. This is that whole idea, and we'll talk about this maybe a little bit more as we bring the rest of the panel in. I think this is a good time to bring the rest of the panel in. So if I could get Abrar and Waddell and David to rejoin us. This idea of growing your own, and many companies saying we've got to have our raw materials closer to us, or we've got to have a relationship with someone who may not be impacted in the same way if we're closer to that channel. Does anybody want to address that? I don't necessarily want to use the word onshoring, but kind of more of a reassuring relationship.
Hey, Scott, I'll start. The word you don't want to touch on is the word that industry is using, right? So you think about in the 90s when companies were really looking at their P&L and trying to figure out, how do we become more profitable? A lot of organizations made decisions to go to Southeast Asia. They made decisions to go to Mexico because of the labor costs associated with manufacturing. What that did essentially was to extend the lead times associated with those supply chains. And I think we were able to really reap the benefits of those cost factors for a couple decades, right? Now that we've had a major disruption called COVID-19, I think it's forcing a lot of manufacturers as well as retailers to rethink their sourcing strategies, right? And part of that sourcing strategies is really looking at the opportunity to onshore and really kind of reintroduce capabilities and capacities back here in North America, right? To your point of building contingency, the thought of onshoring, the thought of contingency is really kind of speaks to building more resilient and more agile supply chains, which means supply chains that are more flexible to really the changing market dynamics. And so the whole thought and the whole premise of onsourcing is one of the top priorities that I believe chief supply chain officers are evaluating at this point in time.
Scott, my perspective on that is echo what Waddell said, but I think when a large number of companies in this country went to low-cost country sourcing, I think Waddell would agree that what they really outsourced was their inefficiencies. And they use labor as an edge to really maintain their profit margins. But when it's coming back, the thing that minority suppliers need to understand, it's not coming back the same way it left. It's coming back more technologically advanced. Large corporations are accelerating their digitalization or their technology platforms. And minority suppliers need to also learn to begin to accelerate theirs, because the condition that it left in manufacturing ain't the condition that's coming back. And it's going to have a profound impact on labor, having the right skills with the right labor in place. So when we hear the terms nearshoring and insourcing, the small guys need to understand that they need to get ready for a different landscape, a different type of manufacturing, and they need to get ready for it, and they need to accelerate their readiness for it, because it's going to be quite different.
So that's one of the, and I know Abrar, you want to jump in. One of the challenges, it seems to me, whether you're large or small, is this is suggesting if I'm going to invest in Industry 4.0, I have to have something I can invest with. And that investment, to me, seems like it's still extremely significant. Abrar, you've made some investments. But you want to talk about that, so that you are more prepared?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, to the question on shoring is, I think a medical market is very different. It's very, tough. They didn't learn that much lesson from COVID-19. I mean, everyone was, big on, we want to bring back the manufacturing into US, and we are going to support it. And so for one and a half year, everybody was on board. But when it comes to paying for it, the medical industry, they don't want to pay for it. They don't want to pay the premium cost. Again, the labor cost is higher, the material cost is higher in the United States. So they went back again to the same basics of, we are not going to buy for this much, but you have to lower your cost. So there's a lot of different challenges, and that's where we look into how we can invest and how we can also make our supply chain stronger through innovation, through technology, and also, through training. And also, one of the things is, we just bought a more equipment, more advanced equipment. The labor was a challenge. Not that much challenge today, but it was a challenge. Lesson learned. How we can do the automation. How we are going to, be more efficient through automation. So one of the things is AI. How we are going to put AI into our system. To see how we are going to more heavily depend on the data. How we are going to analyze the data and use the data to make ourselves more efficient. Giving at the industry we are, the medical industry is very brutal. They are looking for cost margin. The hospitals, they work on 2 to 3% margins, and a lot of them are losing money. So they are not ready for onshoring, and I don't think so they will ever be ready for onshoring unless these are technology which is patent. They are willing to pay for it, but for commodity, they are not. So we have to be like a more innovative in that way. How we can serve our customers, be more innovative through technology, to the supply chain, and through internal sources. And again, I'm all for bringing the jobs here, and that was one of the things I always believed in, creating more jobs in USA, and we keep on doing it.
So you kind of touched on something. I think it's important. There are going to be some products that perhaps there will be advantages in importing, right? Some of those raw materials or the products. But there is also a comment that you made about higher end products, which may make sense for us to do here, to apply our talents, our skills, our educational backgrounds. I've got a question really that goes to policy. You all are experiencing these challenges that all of these companies are making. I am beginning to see more funds coming, whether it's from the federal government or state and local governments, to manufacturers so that they can begin to acquire these 4.0 technologies. And the companies that you're working with, David, are they looking to embrace those opportunities to leverage federal and state funds or even, private sector funds?
Well, yes, our members are folks like Intel, Applied Materials, a lot of companies that are in medical devices like Johnson & Johnson, Abbott, and Medtronic. Their concern is that there is capacity. There's a large number of dollars out there, but their big concern now is trying to leverage funds to create opportunities for diverse suppliers to participate and access some of the dollars out there. Because look, like the Chips and Science Act, I mean, you got to understand folks in our orbit like Intel and Applied, they are looking at minority suppliers more to be at tier 2 and 3 levels. They don't see any minority suppliers able to even touch their capacity requirements at the tier 1 level. So when we talk about funding, we kind of break it down on tiers. So to answer your question, yes, they are looking at funding sources, but their concern is they also realize that funding alone doesn't make you a good manufacturer, unless you take time to develop that strategy and understand what your starting point should be. And I'm concerned that all the conversation about throwing dollars without capability development is going to not have the effect that people intended for it to have, without focus on development, then digitalization and sustainability. Because at the core, you have to first be a good manufacturer to leverage the opportunities that are out there. And I think too many companies are focused just on getting the money without the development.
I appreciate that, David. I do. I know, Sharon, in this area, you've been really looking particularly at the chip manufacturing and how you can engage some of your members in what is developing, not just there, but also with the infrastructure bill. These are policy issues, right? That we have to get MBEs in front of. Any thoughts on that, Sharon?
Sure, and David makes a very, very good point. But I think what happens is that we get so caught up on the potential of opportunity, right?
Mhm.
And we've seen over the years, and I've had some great mentors in this space like Tony Robinson and you, Scott, example. We've seen over the years where we have not been at the table when there's been the influx of money, where there's been the opportunity to join emerging technologies. And as those technologies kind of take off, we've seen companies that were at the table, their trajectory rose with the emergence of those technologies. And so whereas, we get intoxicated with funding that's now pouring in from the federal government, from Treasury to the state to allegedly local government, but that's a whole different conversation and webinar in terms of how we catch that money. But the problem is the preparation. Like Scott, remember this money that we were just recently going after, said that if you put chips in there, your proposal would be maybe looked at. But the problem is, where are we on the spectrum and to be able to do anything with chips? And so right now, the focus, and I can be corrected, the focus is we've got to even now build an awareness how we can even play in that industry, right? And then build an awareness because we have savvy entrepreneurs now that can then pivot or include those kinds of things. But first we have to be aware. And then we've got to build the awareness, not only with our current MBE portfolio of entrepreneurs, business people, but with the next generation of those entrepreneurs as well, that they can take advantage of those opportunities. But I'm just afraid that we go after these things and then the money dries up even before we get it, and then the opportunities aren't there and we still aren't prepared. And I think that is the danger of what we see happening.
David?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything Sharon has said. And I think one of the ways we are approaching that is we're trying to look at building smaller ecosystems. Because I think the problem out there is so huge and so magnanimous. We're in a chip war globally. I mean, globalization is almost going out of the windows now. And unless minority suppliers and their customers participate in a smaller ecosystem, a lot of the success is not going to happen. So what we're trying to do, Sharon, is to not try to boil the ocean so much as to bring suppliers and potential customers and potential advocacy organizations and technical resources in the same orbit, in the same ecosystem, something like a community of practice, where they can focus on the problems at a smaller level rather than trying to compete out there outside of the ecosystem. So that's our response to what you said, Sharon, in terms of trying to bring a family of entities together in an ecosystem to look at the problem, look at the opportunity, the resources, and to create an internal trading partner organization that can make some of this stuff happen.
Let me just say this, Sharon, David, that is, your comments are the reason that the Manufacturing Innovation Hub Cooperative actually exists. You said it in a way that I think was very easily understood. To create this ecosystem, to bring people together, kind of have a common background, really focused on manufacturing, understanding that they need certain things. They need 4.0. They need the appropriate logistics skill sets. They need the appropriate financial skills or the ability to get money, to get resources to do their projects. They need the lawyers and the intellectual property coverage. That's what this is all about, right? That's why I reach out to all of you on a regular basis, because each one of you brings some background that helps to bring people together. We're at 154. So this is what I want to do, because Sharon, I know you're ready to say a couple of things.
I said we got to bring the village together. We got
to bring the village together. But I want to do this. So there were a couple of questions. I'm going to say them on this call and we'll give answers to individuals. Of the largest supply chain companies, is there a list of those in the DMV area? There are lists, various lists. Probably the best person to talk about some of the larger companies that have larger supply chains. I'm not sure if you're talking about logistics companies, kind of like the Amazons and the warehouses. We've got a whole group of folks that are down in Tray Point Atlantic as an example, and we can share that information with you. So we'll take that one offline. We had another question from a home builder, and one of his biggest supply chain challenges was the shortage of lumber. So he asked, are you all seeing your constituent buying options or warrants on the future of wall materials? In essence, are our constituents stockpiling? Are they buying things? And I think Abrar kind of answered that question when he said, yep, he's extended his inventory out 4 to 5 months. I think a number of companies are doing the same thing. Are there other alternatives? Waddell, you want to give an alternative to stockpiling? Maybe you don't stockpile, but you work with your supplier and you say to your supplier, I know I need 6 months worth of stuff. I have a backlog. Will you do that and keep it off of my books? That's another way of addressing that. So I'll answer those couple of questions and let me see. I think that was it. They talked about warranties as well, but we'll try to reach back out to Mr. Bree Jones and Achievers LLC. All right, I gotta give each one of you an opportunity to wrap up and provide some wise, sage advice for your last comments. And I will start, I saved Sharon for last going into this, but I'm going to start with ladies first to close it out. So Ms. Sharon Pinder.
Scott, first of all, thank you for the opportunity and thank you for making this connection, because I think what's important, because as I was scratching my head trying to figure out how do we posture and position, well, I remember meeting David Burton through Sheila Deuce Johnson at McCormick. And I know, Waddell, you probably know her as well. And so I walk away with, this is the village that we need in terms of kind of taking it to the next level, next steps. And so I know you got a time, but that's my wrap up.
but thank you, Sharon. I feel when you all say that, I feel like we're doing our job collectively.
Absolutely.
Yep. So Mr. Daniels, I'll go with you.
All right, Scott, thank you in the MiHUB organization for this opportunity as well. Again, supply chain's broad. What I would suggest to the minority manufacturers is, to David's point, you look at your organization just beyond manufacturing. You really need to look at it as an end-to-end supply chain that's really connected with your customer, your customer's customers, your suppliers, your supplier's suppliers. So I would encourage you to really understand that end-to-end value chain as you evaluate what your opportunities are going forward within your company.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels, and we'll move over to Mr. Burton.
Well, what he said was so important. I'm going to say it again, and that is that if you're in manufacturing, think yourself not as a manufacturer, but as a supply chain organization that manufactures. And also keep in mind, if you're in manufacturing, capability alone will not get you there, but capability without capacity is a hollow conversation in today's supply chain. And going back to that ecosystem, relationships is one thing, but building trust-based relationships is another one. And that takes time to develop. It's not just a matter of giving someone a business card. You've got to develop the trust, because I know for sure that those in a decision-making position will want to trust you first before they have a serious conversation about inviting you to the table to talk about opportunity.
Well, thank you, David. And a person who has garnered that trust, a trusted provider, is Mr. Abrar Solatch. So Abrar.
Thank you, Scott, for giving me the opportunity. So I will say that, plan ahead for your customers, know your suppliers, and also do your homework. Especially, you have to look into the financial markets. If you're a commodity business, look what's going on. Make a decision. If you are owner of the company, think ahead. think about, about your customers. You need to deliver them, and you need to keep your business flowing on. So manage your business well through the supply chain, through your customers, and plan ahead.
So, folks, we've had another wonderful MiHUB Monday. I want to thank Sharon Pinder, Waddell Daniels, Abrar, Solatch, and David Burton for joining us today. This session, as always, has been recorded. We will be sharing it, but I would remind you, please visit us at the BaltimoreMBDA.com. That's BaltimoreMBDA.com, or MiHUBCoop.com. That's MiHUBCoop.com. Please listen out for our next MiHUB Monday, and hold the date. May 25th will be our Minority Made Symposium here in Baltimore. I thank all of you for joining us today. I thank my team for helping to produce this event. And as always, we ask you to go out and make it. And also, while you're making it, make a few dollars and improve the communities in which you live. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next MiHUB Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.